You may not know it, but we have recently lived through a historic cyber attack. Historic in size, scale, complexity, and even duration. An attack that remained undetected for months and impacted many US government organizations in one of the largest espionage cyber attacks ever seen. The Solarwinds compromise of 2020 was incredible, and it may hold a dark future for cybersecurity and its evolution. But it is very interesting. It's still under investigation, and not every detail may have even been found yet. But what we know is so clever and cunning that the details of the attack and each stage of it are going to be dissected now. Let's talk about what happened with Solarwinds. First, let me give a little context about Solarwinds, their product, and how it's deployed and used. Solarwinds is a company with many IT products, from their popular Network Performance Monitor to their SIM, a Security Incident and Event Manager. As just one example of many, this excerpt is from their datasheet on their Network Performance Monitor product. It, quote, is a powerful and affordable network monitoring software that enables you to quickly detect, diagnose, and resolve network performance problems and outages, end quote. With this tool system, any network technicians can have great visibility of a complex network infrastructure. It is widely used and has many customers over their large suite of products. To deploy and update SolarWinds, all an admin has to do is download the official update package from SolarWinds. They then simply run an installer or manually add the files so that the patch is applied, and done. It's very simple and intuitive. Keep that in mind going through the attack. September 4th, 2019. A day like any other, and it would end like one too. There was no reason to believe anything was going wrong at this point. But today was different. SolarWinds was accessed by the threat actor on this date, the earliest seen so far. Fast forward a week to September 12th, and the same threat actor decided to test the waters. Placeholder code was injected into the SolarWinds platform. This code took no action on the target, but was a proof of concept for the attacker that what they were about to do was very possible. These simple tests were run for 2 months, and were all part of the threat actor's reconnaissance on the target. Interestingly, while SolarWinds was the target, they were not, quote, the target, so to say. They were merely the platform used to get to the target. The real target of this operation was the United States government. And this motivation is important. It also changes the likely attribution of this attack, and this probably crossed the mind of the incident responders both in the private and public sector as the attack details developed. Think about it. The reason for committing a murder is probably different than an offender that commits a robbery. The same is true for attacks in cyberspace, and can greatly help the investigators. Let's take a step back. You may be wondering how this threat actor accessed the SolarWinds platform in the first place. Well, it wasn't a vulnerability in SolarWinds' build system, but something a lot simpler. One possibility is that one or more of SolarWinds' Microsoft Office 365 accounts were compromised leading up to this attack. It's not known exactly how these credentials were obtained, but we could speculate something like phishing, or even maybe the exploitation of zero logon could have been a part of it. The point is, now the attackers know that they can modify the SolarWinds builds that were sent out to their customers. Their proof of concept worked. Knowing this, they used the months between December 2019 and February 2020, standing up and implementing their command and control infrastructure. This is a critical component of the compromise, and contributes to how the malware was able to stay undetected for so long. You see, this complicated and very clever threat actor did not use conventional command and control communication channels. Oftentimes, command and control, or C2 traffic, can seem obvious to incident responders and security personnel. Malware like Emotet or Qbot use IP addresses for their C2 communications, and simply looking at a network log for that address will reveal any infections. It was not quite that easy in this case. And it only gets more complicated because the function of SolarWinds is to monitor network traffic. This kind of sophistication strengthens the argument that this was a complicated Advanced Persistent Threat Actor, or APT. The malware authors intentionally made the command and control communications look just like SolarWinds traffic. It would store reconnaissance results within legitimate plugin config files. It also avoided detection by identifying antivirus tools and forensic tools that were running on any host machine. Now that is amazing. Now, how did this malware spread so widely? Well, it abused the trusting relationship between SolarWinds and its customers. Remember earlier how easy it was for administrators to update to the new package. But in this case, that's where everything went wrong. If you remember, the attacker found out earlier that they could tamper with the Solarwinds builds. So, when this update was downloaded and installed, it contained the malware that was inserted by the attacker. This, combined with the characteristics of the malware, like similar classes and namespaces to the actual product, it hid in plain sight. Pretty sneaky stuff, huh? This is what happened in February of 2020, 10 months before the discovery. On December 8th, the first signs came to light. The cybersecurity firm FireEye discovered something was missing. After a short investigation, they found many of their penetration testing and security assessment tools were stolen. These tools normally would be used by the company to assess their clients' security by essentially hacking them with the tools. You can see why an attacker might be interested in taking those, and that's exactly what happened. They noted that the attacker was highly sophisticated, not only covering their tracks, but also they were clued into this possibility after the discovery of a complicated command and control infrastructure we talked about earlier. On December 8th, they did not know that SolarWinds was part of the problem. Over the next few days, FireEye was in damage control, meticulously reviewing thousands of programs and files to find the origin of the problem. According to an interview with FireEye CEO Kevin Mandia, quote, "We have thousands and thousands of computers that we inspected for evidence that they were compromised, and we couldn't get anything earlier in the time frame than a SolarWinds system," end quote. They knew something was wrong. They just couldn't find out what. So, they went headfirst into the reverse engineering of SolarWinds updates. From the CEO, quote, "We went through 14 gigabytes of information, over 18,000 files in the update that we got from SolarWinds, over 4,000 executable files. We decompiled them into millions of lines. And then, with real malware analysts, we found the needle in the haystack," end quote. They named this malware Sunburst. When they found that it was a Trojanized SolarWinds update that deployed the malware, FireEye immediately notified the NSA, as they use SolarWinds as well. December 12th, 2020. SolarWinds was notified of the malware. I'm leaving this section here, but if you'd like a more technical analysis of the SolarWinds malware as it was discovered, I'm posting a video of a technical breakdown. The first sign of damage was that FireEye's Red Team tools were missing. These proprietary tools are great assessment and testing tools of a security posture, and FireEye has taken steps to let the public know how these tools work in order to prevent them from being used maliciously by a threat actor. For damage to the US government and its assets, Senator Marco Rubio, the Senate Intelligence Committee chairman at the time, stated that this attack was, quote, "increasingly clear that Russian intelligence conducted the gravest cyber intrusion in our history," end quote. The sheer amount of data exfiltrated from government systems was astounding. According to Thomas Ridd, a cyber conflict professor, the amount of data, if printed, would likely be taller than the Washington Monument. Much of the data that may have been taken remains classified, but we do know that 11 executive departments were connected to the data breach, including the DoD, the DOE, and the DOT. The other impact to an attack of this complexity has to do with threat actor eviction. See, after the discovery and subsequent patching of the SolarWinds issue, many incident responders and executive personnel are left wondering if they have rid of a malicious threat residing in their systems with 100% certainty. Especially when an attacker has shown such competence, it can be hard to give the green light to system administrators and business personnel who need these systems for their daily functions. And because this attacker was undetected on so many systems for so long, around 10 months, there's no telling the other potential backdoors or monitors that were set up in the meantime. This could mean that they could attack again, or keep access if it was ever required. We may not know the full extent of their activity for years, partially also due to how well they were able to scrub the crime scene clean of evidence. Perhaps the most significant response, and rightfully so, would be from SolarWinds themselves. As they were transitioning leadership at the time, it made sense and good opportunity for them to begin a new wave of policies around their platform security and to increase their customers' trust. On January 7th, SolarWinds released a blog post written by the new CEO, Sudhakar Ramakrishna, that detailed their plan for exactly that. Security practices are under review, additional threat protection and hunting capabilities for their internal network, and moving to a completely new build environment with stricter access controls are just some of the steps they are taking in the new plan. On December 14th, 2020, the CEOs of several American utility companies convened to discuss the risks posed to the power grid by the attacks. And then, On December 22, 2020, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation asked electricity companies to report their level exposure to Solarwinds software. Cyber Pearl Harbor, anyone? Perhaps fortunately, this attack was espionage and information based rather than destructive. There were many political responses and criticisms from various parties that I'm generally omitting here. However, in March, it was reported that, quote, a series of clandestine actions across Russian networks, end quote, were being planned. Don't think the US government doesn't play the game too. Additionally, and what may have made the news the most, the US expelled 10 Russian diplomats and issued sanctions against 6 Russian companies on April 15th. The companies were chosen because they support the Russian cyber operations. The attack was fully attributed to the Russian SVR, one of their government's foreign intelligence agencies. 11 days later, CISA posted an alert detailing the group's tactics and techniques that were commonly seen, and how defenders can prepare and defend against them. Reportedly, and perhaps expectedly, these techniques have changed and adapted fairly rapidly. Though it may not seem like it, the SolarWinds attack was one of the most cunning, clever, and potentially destructive cyber attacks ever to occur. Physically destructive? No, and potentially never. But it was costly, both monetarily and reputationally. The US government is never going to appear to panic, but I am sure pants were needing to be changed shortly after this attack was discovered and the full extent was brought to light of how much data was lost. This will certainly encourage both public and private spending in cybersecurity training, awareness, and secure development procedures. SolarWinds was an espionage operation that, so far, and hopefully forever, has not produced any destructive capabilities. But an espionage attack today may mean more tomorrow. Sure, advanced persistent threats may always have an advantage. They have more time and can always keep poking at the doors and windows to find a way in. It only takes one crack in the defense for the sword to break the rest. Still, we can't let that deter us from putting up our defenses and fighting against them. We can't give up. But hey, talk is cheap. Let's see if anyone out there is listening and puts up after this attack. This could be the wake-up call that some need to take action.